So I just want to take a moment and provide a little bit of information about how to be successful. And this coming from a guy who's recording videos in his pantry. But I'm 44 years old, and these are some of the things that I didn't know when I was younger, and I've gotten to where I am because I've listened to some of the stuff people have tried to tell me, not all of it. But one of the things that I've learned in my life is this, and that's how to be successful and how to succeed at something. And in success by your own standards, whatever you define success to be. So if you want to be successful financially, for instance, right? Like if you want to achieve professionally and provide for yourself and your loved ones, and then take what you're doing and help others. If you want to be successful, one of the most important things is focus, right? Excuse me. So knowing how to focus on something. And by that, I don't mean like, I'm focused on it, which is also important, concentration, but focusing on it in the sense like, I'm going to dedicate my life to doing this thing. I'm going to make it a high priority in my life, number one or number two. Like it's a high priority in my life. I'm going to focus on that. And like, for instance, every day, I'm going to do 2 hours of web programming. 2 hours every day, no matter what happens. Come hell or high water, every day I'm doing 2 hours of web programming. And if I miss it one day, I'm going to make it up the next day. So you could hear that that's pretty fierce focus. That's pretty intense, right? That's pretty fierce. But if you do that and every day, 2 hours every day, at the end of the year, you're going to know some stuff, right? You're going to be good. And at the end of 2 years, you're going to have mastery over something. And so that's to me one of the most important things about being focused is choosing what you want to do and applying yourself on a daily basis towards doing it. So one teacher I had talked about this being the phrase the teacher I had said was what they would say is drop by drop the bucket gets filled. And so it's the same thing. Like every day you add a drop to the bucket. Like if you had a bucket and you're going to put drops of water in it, every day you add a drop, you add a drop, you add a drop. And after 3 months, you might be like, there's hardly anything in there. Been adding drops every day for 3 months, and there's like only that much water in the bucket. But if you keep adding those drops, after a while, that bucket's going to be filled. And so the phrase one of my teachers, would say would be drop by drop, the bucket gets filled. Drop by drop, the bucket gets filled. And so to me, that's one of the most important things about being successful, is just focusing. There's also something that Bill Gates said, which as soon as I heard it, it stuck with me. And he said that if you want to be successful, get in front of what's coming and let it hit you. And so technology, even though like, oh wow, creating websites, that's been around 20 years, but in the history of humanity, that hasn't been around that long. Like 20 years isn't that long, and there's not a lot of people who know how to do it. There are people who know how to do it, but it's still a very demanded skill, right? So, getting in front of what's coming and what's here, web programming, that's huge. But even taking that same concept and thinking, well, what else is coming and how can I get in front of it? So for instance, I really believe in this programming language called Go. and uh, and when you do web programming, you've got the front end and you've got the back end. So the front end is like what everybody sees on a website. It's the front of the website. The back end is like all the programming logic on the server. So on the front end, you have HTML and CSS and JavaScript running on the client. And on the back end, you have some programming language. And traditionally, those programming languages have been like ASP, ASP.NET, PHP, JSP, Cold Fusion, right? Before that, you had CGI and Perl, and then PHP pretty much dominated like 2002 through 2000 and now, and it's starting to wane, but it's huge in the marketplace. And the argument for like knowing PHP is that there's a lot of jobs out there in PHP. but it's not a really good language. It's not. And Facebook was built in PHP, and they hit a lot of performance walls. And now there's some new server-side languages, right? Like Ruby on Rails is really popular, and Node and Python are also popular. And so, right, like those are some of the choices you might look at for server-side languages. But Google in 2007, right, created a new language, and all of the current programming languages which are out there couldn't do what Google wanted to have done. Think about that for a second. The best software engineering firm to have ever existed couldn't have its needs met by all of the current programming languages. And so Google hired a couple of guys, Ken Thompson, Rob Pike, and Robert Grissomer. And these are some guys who are luminaries in computer science, like some of the best minds in computer science working today. And these three guys, Rob Pike, Ken Thompson, Robert Grissomer, helped create C, Unix, and UTF-8. And so the C programming language, the Unix operating system, and UTF-8, the world's most popular coding scheme, this is like the bedrock of computer science, those three things. So the same guys who helped create these things, which are the bedrock of computer science, at the best software engineering firm to have ever existed in the history of humanity, they all got together and created a new programming language because none of the current languages could do what Google wanted to have done. And so that was in 2007. In 2009, they released it as an open source project. In 2012, it was version 1. So at the time I'm recording this video, Go is less than 4 years old. It will be 4 years, like 2016 in March. And it's like, that's what is coming. Like that language is going to succeed, and it's a great language. And so, becoming a web programmer, you could be a full stack programmer. And full stack means I know HTML, I know CSS, I know JavaScript, and I know how to do backend. And if you're going to be full stack, what's your backend going to be? Node, Python, PHP, right? Ruby on Rails, or Go. And so for me, it's that quote from Bill Gates: get in front of what's coming and let it hit you. And it's always a bit of a gamble. Like beta was better than VHS and for old videotapes. But the market went with VHS. In my opinion, Unix and POSIX type operating systems, Unix type operating systems, are better than DOS-based operating systems. But DOS dominated in the marketplace. Windows dominated in the marketplace. So it's not always the best technology which is adopted and becomes popular. But I just wanted to share those two insights because you're beginning a bit of a journey, and having the right mindset is going to help you succeed on that journey. And so to be successful, what I've learned in my life is I need to devote myself to what I want to gain success in. And every day I need to take a step towards learning something new or in enhancing my skill in that thing. I mean, we know this from sports, right? Like, if you want to get good at a sport, soccer, basketball, you got to practice every day. And if you practice every day, you'll get better. It's just the way it works. And it's the same thing with coding and programming and building websites. Like every day, set aside 2 hours. Have that discipline, that devotion, that focus. And at the end of a year, you're going to be great. And, or maybe at the end of 2 years. At the end of a year, you'll be good. And then in a year, 2 years, you'll be great. And then also something else to think about is choose wisely about what you're devoting yourself to. So think about who's coming, what's coming. How can I get in front of what's coming? And like for me, Go has great credentials, right? Has really great credentials. And so, is it a good choice to learn this thing or to get involved in this thing, which I'm thinking of getting involved in? All right. So I hope that helps you a little bit and gives you some motivation and gives you like a good mindset for approaching, okay, I'm going to learn this stuff, because that kind of a perspective and philosophy has been really helpful to me in my life. And it isn't something that I had when I was young. It was something that was sort of, I learned over time. And I learned it because people shared, stuff like this with me. And, you know, I had a teacher telling me, hey, drop by drop, the bucket gets filled. Keep putting those drops in. And so I'm passing that on to you. So hopefully it's helpful to you too.